Well, good morning. So I'm going to begin with a survey, okay? So if this applies to you, just raise your hand. In the first service, we had people raise the hand before I even asked the question. There's a different group in the first service. Did you know that? Okay, they're pretty rowdy. So let me just ask you this question. How many of you are dealing with a difficult life situation right now? Raise your hand. Okay. Now, how many of you know of someone who's dealing with a difficult life situation? Oh, that's everybody else. Okay, so now let me ask you this question. Where is the difficulty really in a difficult life situation? Point to it. Now, don't point to your spouse, your neighbor. So you're saying, well, let me get this right. Yeah, Dr. Jim, he's the problem. Let me get this right. So you're saying that the difficulty in a difficult life situation is not about the situation so much it's about how we're being with it. Is that what you're saying? Okay, because that's a very unique perspective. Most of the world believes that the difficulty in a difficult life situation is in the situation. But what we're saying and what we practice in principle is that how I'm being with what I'm having determines how I'm having what my experience is unto me. And just think about that for a moment. How we are being with whatever we're experiencing determines how that experience is with us. Okay, because we live our life from the inside out, not the outside in. But now there are times in our life, all of us, from time to time, mistakenly believe that the source of our discomfort or the source of our well-being, i.e. life is either for us or against us, is about what's happening out there. And when we make the mistake of believing that how our life is out there determines whether or not we're okay or not, we're living in what I describe as the shadow effect. The shadow effect is a dynamic. Whenever we are sourcing our discomfort or our well-being outside of ourselves, we're living in an arena that looks and feels against us. And we want to recover our own personal power because that's living in the disconnect, you see. Whenever we're having someone or something against us, whether it be a life situation, an illness, or interpersonal difficulty, whenever we believe that the source of our discomfort is coming from those experiences instead of arising from within ourselves, we're like giving our power away to those moments. Now let me ask you this question. So how many of you have ever had to have your life be a certain way in order for you to feel okay? Just raise your hand. Okay, so that's an example of sourcing your well-being or discomfort outside of yourself, because if you have to have your life out there be a certain way in order for you to feel better about things, you've given your power to the situation, and that's only going to exacerbate the problem. So, in unity we have a foundation principle. There's one presence and one power active in my life and in the universe, God the good. Are you familiar with this? And then, of course, there are the exceptions. Or so it seems sometimes, right? But what are those exceptions really? Aren't they really a mirror unto our own disconnect? I mean, think about it for a moment. When our life looks and feels against us, when we're living in the belief that here's an exception to the principle that there's just God going on, it's really a mirror to that part of ourself that's not connected to the truth of who and what we've come here to be. Something else is showing up in our place. In other words, there's a part of ourself that is being with whatever we're having, but not being us, not the truth of us in any way. We're being who we are not. So let me give you an example. So have you ever needed to be right before? Just raise your hand. This is furball. Cough it up. Raise it real tall. Now, what's going on? Who do you have to be when you're needing to be right? I mean, just think about for a moment. So let's say you're judged. Someone judges you, makes you the matter with them. You get triggered. You react. And then you're showing up with whatever explanation or rationale or position that you have, needing to be right. But what's really going on underneath all of that? Maybe what's going on underneath the need to be right is inadequacy or unworthiness. I mean, when you're needing to be right, aren't you really trying to cover up that place within yourself where you feel small and powerless or not okay? So the behavior or being with whatever is happening out of any sense of needing to be right or having to have things be a certain way or defensiveness or controlling is really a coping strategy to protect ourselves from feeling the feeling of I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not okay, there's something wrong with me. And every one of us has those beliefs within ourselves. I mean, think about it for a moment. Because Mary and Joseph were our parents, we didn't grow up from day one believing that our purpose was to be the one unto our life, the Christ of God unto our world. Instead, we took on different beliefs depending upon our early childhood experiences, you see. And those beliefs began to formulate a sense of identity, a sense of who we are. And so there are times when we are being not enough with what we're having, and then we react to the experience of insufficiency thinking that the problem is out there, as opposed to acknowledging that if there's a sense of not enough within ourselves, it's going to show up in our life experience. It's going to mirror that place in us where we are not being the truth of us. When we're not being the truth of us, we live in the disconnect. We live out of integrity with spiritual principle. And so our effort to transform our life, to bring forth a greater good, has to come from that part of ourself that is here to make a difference in the world. It can't come from our unworthiness. It can't come from our sense of not enough. And yet if we have those things happening in our life that mirror those places in ourselves, and we're trying to fix what's going on out there, you know, we collapse the field of infinite possibilities. I mean, when you think about it, think about it for a moment this way. When you've had to have things be a certain way in order for you to feel okay about your experience, you shut down the field of infinite possibilities. God says, I can't work with you. I mean, think about it. When we have to have something be a certain way, all the other ways it could be collapse. They go out of our experience. And what if the one way that God needs as an avenue through which we can be brought into a greater expression of who and what we've come here to be is the very experience that we want to push away? And so can we see how when we're having someone or something against us and we're trying to fix that problem by trying to have things out there change because we don't feel okay, that's kind of what could be described as spiritual malpractice, to coin a professional medical term. So when our life looks and feels against us, it's a mirror. And it's a mirror unto our own disconnect. Okay, so that should be something that we can acknowledge. Yes, that happens. But the point is that when it's happening in your life, are we moving towards a spiritual practice, or we're trying to worry and fret and change and do stuff in order to have this be different so we can feel better? That's the problem, and that's what we have to stop doing if we were to actually transform our life. So let me check in again with this. How many of you looked into the mirror this morning before you came to church today? Okay, first service, several people didn't look into the mirror. It was very obvious that was the case. And when you looked into the mirror, what did you do? You tried to fix it, didn't you? I mean, not the mirror, of course. You didn't put makeup on the mirror, you know, and why would you fix you anyway? Well, you probably were uncomfortable with what got reflected back early in the morning, you know, with the hair all weird and whatever. But the point is that when we have life reflect back to us that we're being our inadequacy, our unworthiness, we want to fix the mirror. We want to get God to fix the way the mirror works. Have you ever tried to get God to change the way the mirror works in your life? But you see, God does not have an interest in trying to change how your life looks and feels, because God knows how your life looks and feels is not against you. We have it against us because we're ill-equipped to deal with our own discomfort without projecting it outside of ourselves. But once we understand that the discomfort arises from within us, we can become curious as to what that discomfort's really all about. And what we discover is that discomfort is really about the little boy or little girl in us that didn't get what it needed in a moment that was really impressionable. And instead we took on some belief about ourselves that was less than the truth of who we are. And then we have experiences that mirror that belief, and then we become convinced that that's the truth of us. I'm not okay. There's something wrong with me. I'm not good enough. And that's the condition that all of us have to work through. And no spiritual power is going to alter the outer condition until we first arrive at the truth of who we are and be it unto what we're having as our life experience. So Dr. Jim mentioned that I was a martial artist. I used to have a large martial arts school, and it was my custom as the senior instructor to ask all my young students who were testing for their first degree black belt to tell me what your black belt represents. What does it symbolize to you? So Scott, 9 years old, says this. He says, before I was a black belt, when I got into a fight, I had to fight because I was afraid. But now that I'm a black belt, I can walk away. For a 9-year-old to get that there's a distinction between being in a threatening situation and when you're afraid, when you're triggered, that you have to have things be so wrong, that you have to fight. And yet being in that same challenging situation but connected to some metaphor of one's own well-being and worth, there's a total different way of being with that moment. What a profound realization for this 9-year-old to have at that age. In the 30 years that I've taught and practiced martial arts, I've broken all my fingers, my toes, my wrists. I've had 5 broken ribs. I've been knocked out. I've been stabbed. I've been choked unconscious. I've been in the emergency room 3 times to be sewn up, all in the practice of martial arts. I've never been attacked. Similarly, as a minister, I've had my back stabbed, my butt kicked, my ego bruised. I've been raked over the coals. I've been pounced on. I mean, have you ever told someone that you were attacked today at work or stabbed in the back by your boss? I mean, isn't it interesting the metaphors we use to describe how our life is when it looks and feels against us? And we have to begin to take responsibility for what we're putting out there energetically in the world that's showing up as all the craziness that's going on. We're feeding that craziness. Maybe not on the grand scale of politics or corporate America or all the craziness that are happening throughout the world, but in our own personal life, we're injecting that discord until we recover and find ourselves more connected to the truth of who we are and what we've come here to be. Fortunately, we have spiritual practices as a remedy for these conditions. For the shadow effect, there's a spiritual practice that we can find in the teachings and gospel of Jesus. And I want to share a way in which his instruction gives us a tool to be able to dismantle the dynamic of being caught up and entangled in the belief that someone or something is against us. Are you interested in that teaching? You'll find it in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verses 42 and 43. And I'm going to quote from the King James Version, the version that Jesus used. All right, you're with it too. The first service got it also. Excellent. So as I share this, I want you to think about an enemy that you have in your life. The enemy is just Jesus' terminology, his technical term to describe the dynamic of having someone or something against you. Okay, that gives us a good sense of what the dynamic is. And so think about an enemy in your life. Your enemy can be your body. If you have an illness or a disability or self-image, You could think of your body being against you. Your enemy can be a relationship conflict, a difficulty that you're having with a child or a parent or a significant partner. Your enemy can be a life situation, what's going on in the world or with your job or your circumstances. And you know you're in relationship to an enemy when you are needing to be right, having to have things be a certain way, controlling, trying to push things away, making somebody else the matter with you. Have you ever done that before? Have you ever made somebody the matter with you before? Of course you have. But it's important for us to understand what's that about. It's about you're more connected to who you are not, your unworthiness. That's what's really about, making somebody else the matter with you. Anyway, what Jesus says is this. First step, love your enemies. Second step, bless those that curse you. Third step, do good to those that hate you. And fourth step, pray for those who despitefully use you and persecute you, so you may be called children of your Father which is in heaven. So it's almost as if we don't get to actually claim our spiritual birthright as children of God until we're able to demonstrate that practice amidst circumstances that look and feel against us. And so what does it mean to love our enemies? To love the situation that looks and feels against us? Well, let us just say that it's not what we think about in terms of love, because our head thinks, well, what do you mean love the enemy? What's up with that? Our head is about gathering evidence. So this is a teaching for the heart. And so for the heart yearns to reconcile, yearns to forgive, yearns to connect. And so the teaching here is about being present to what we're having as our experience, because it is a portal to that little boy or little girl within us that is living in the false belief that they're not okay, that they're not worthy, that they're not enough. But if we push this experience away, which is actually connected to that place in us that needs some healing or some integration, we shut down that portal. Can you see how that's so? We close off our healing, and we shut down the activity of spirit that works through us only if we're present to what we're having. The second thing that Jesus says is bless those that curse you. So once again, the head, our intellect, has difficulty with this teaching, and so consequently we ignore it for the most part. But the activity of blessing a situation is a heart activity. It's something that our heart does. So to bless something means to endow it with the capacity to be good in our life. In other words, it is the highest expression of our faculty of faith. If you now want to know what your faculty of faith does, it is the proclamation that which man meant for evil, God meant for good. It is a statement of understanding of principle that it's always for me. And when we understand, we have to search through all of the evidence that our intellect has created as why something's against us and say, that's not the truth. That's just the busyness of the world's interpretation. And so I have to search more diligently for how a situation is for me. If you've got an illness or if you have a conflict in your life, you have to be in the struggle of finding the blessing in it and seeing why it's for you. And in your heart of hearts, you probably already know. It's just that you haven't wanted to go there yet. And then Jesus says, do good to those that hate you. Once again, our head doesn't want to have anything to do with that. But it's a teaching for the heart, isn't it? And so rather than getting even, which is what our head wants to do, or trying to change something, our heart wants to do the right thing in the presence of whatever we're having as our life experience. And we can't ask our head what that right thing is. We have to ask our heart. We have to ask that part of ourself that is linked to the truth of who we are. The truth that we're worthy, that we're enough, that we're okay, that we're divine. And then we have to act on that intuition, on that guidance. We have to take action in order to demonstrate that we're in alignment with that principle. We just can't affirm it into a better place. I once had a clogged sink, and I prayed and prayed and prayed for that clog to go away. I visualized the water flushing it down through the tubes, out through the sewer. No amount of prayer or meditation would get that clog out of my sink. And I said, "Dear God, why hast thou forsaken me?" And you may be in a prayer life like that right now, trying to get God to do something that seems like that's God's job, to fix my life, to fix my drain. Well, then I finally asked my heart, well, what's the right thing to do here? And there was this voice that came into my consciousness: get a plumber. So you get the point. We have to be guided. We have to transcend that part of our, conscious mind that really wants to make the problem out there, when the real restoration of making right our world lives within us. And then finally, Jesus says, "Pray for those who despitefully use you and persecute you, so you may be called children of your Father which is in heaven." And so the praying part might seem a bit easier, "Dear God, get this out of my life." I mean, that's not the prayer that Jesus suggested that we pray. If we think about Jesus from the cross, thinking that, out of anybody, he has the right to say he was a victim, right? I mean, just think about all the unjustness that happened in his experience. There's one example where this person has the right to say that these things were against them, but against him. But what was Jesus' words from the cross about his offenders? "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." And because the reality is that we can only be wounded or hurt by what we're having as our life experience. We can only be diminished by what we're having by our life experience when we're not connected to our own sense of well-being and worth. And our offender can only seemingly hurt us when he or she is not connected to their well-being and worth. So the ills of this world are the consequence of the disconnect. And if we are to be a part of the movement of spirit that is here to lift this world condition up, then we have to stop making what's going on out there the issue and begin to show up in the context of who and what we've come here to be as spiritual beings, and be bearing witness to the activity of God at work in life. Now, it's not going to reveal itself in terms of appearances. You just look out and there's not very much things out there that we can sort of say, okay, there's God going on, but not over here. There's God going on, but not over here. We can't do that. We have to know at the depths of our being, it's all God going on. And then be in the kind of anguish of empathy and compassion, knowing that the world is lost insofar as they are not connecting to the possibilities that God has given us to bring forth heaven on earth. And so as we think about what our purpose is as a unity community, I'm so delighted that you're engaged in spirit groups and in the Q process, because it's going to change the energetic field of your community. And it's going to align yourself with the transformative energies that are happening in our world today. The world is being transformed, and we can observe all kinds of tipping points that are happening in the world where the incongruence of certain systems and programs and institutions, they're falling apart because of the incongruence, because of being out of integrity. And those of us who can stay connected to the truth of who and what we've come here to be are going to be a force for positive change amidst that craziness, that chaos. So love your enemies. Accept, allow, embrace. Accept what's going on, because it's a portal to the little boy or little girl in you that needs your parenting now. Bless those that curse you. Know that each situation has the capacity to bring good in your life. And do good. Ask your heart what is mine to do in the context of this that I'm having right now. Don't try to think yourself through it, because your mind has been turned against you when you believe that someone out there is also against you. And then finally, forgive. Release yourself and release anybody else from any sense that they're responsible for how you are. And claim your power and begin to awaken to the truth that you are here as the one, as the Christ of God unto your world, whatever that is, however that is defined in your life. That's all I have to say. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you.